If someone asks you why you yelled at a friend or why you reached for a glass of water, the intuitive answer is that your internal state caused the action. You yelled because you were angry. You drank because you were thirsty. We assume our thoughts and emotions are the engine driving our physical behavior. Behaviorism rejects that assumption. To a behaviorist, an internal emotion is a parallel byproduct of your environment. External stimuli simultaneously provoke the feeling of anger and the physical act of yelling. The biologist Jacques Loeb argued that an animal does not act out of intent. Instead, it is forced to go where its legs carry it. He viewed behavior as a series of built-in mechanisms that cause organisms to move in adaptive ways, approaching light or heat, without any internal desire or purpose. To navigate this deterministic reality, biological systems utilize two distinct learning algorithms. Algorithm 1, classical conditioning, is an information-gathering mechanism. It maps predictive relationships between events to prepare involuntary, visceral responses, such as the secretion of digestive juices at the sight of food. Algorithm 2, operant conditioning, is a selection mechanism. It maps behavioral outcomes, adjusting the probability of voluntary, skeletal actions based on their consequences. Learning, then, is the measurable process of an environment shaping the observable output of a biological system. In the early 20th century, Ivan Pavlov began isolating the variables of the classical algorithm using simple physiological indicators like salivation. Pavlov established the initial model: pair a neutral event, the conditioned stimulus, with a biological reflex, the unconditioned stimulus. After a few repetitions, the neutral event alone triggers the response. Pavlov theorized that the brain hardwires these connections simply because the two stimuli occur close together in time. Robert Rescorla's research refined this process as an exercise in probability. For an association to form, the stimulus must serve as a statistically reliable predictor. This dual timeline graph maps Rescorla's subjects. Group 1 experiences a light immediately followed by a shock. Group 2 experiences the exact same light-shock pairings, but the environment also delivers many additional shocks when the light is off. Group 1 learns a strong response to the light. Group 2 learns nothing. Because the shock happens frequently without the light provides zero predictive value. Temporal proximity fails without mathematical reliability. Leon Kamen's research into the blocking effect further demonstrates this demand for data. First, subjects learn that a light predicts a shock. Then, a tone is added so that both light and tone precede the shock. In the final test, the tone alone triggers no response. Because the light already perfectly predicts the shock, the added tone offers no new information. The algorithm actively blocks the formation of a redundant association to save metabolic energy. Directly, the classical algorithm is a ruthless information processor, filtering environmental noise to isolate the novel predictors of survival. The life-or-death stakes of this predictive mechanism are visible in how the body manages a biological influx. Long-time drug users can develop a tolerance that allows them to survive doses that would be lethal to others. Yet these individuals frequently suffer fatal overdoses from their standard dose if they take it in an unfamiliar location. The classical algorithm explains this anomaly. The entire injection ritual, the specific room, the sensory details of preparation, serves as the conditioned stimulus. As this graph illustrates, a drug pushes the body away from its physiological baseline. In response, the body's autonomic defenses push downward to compensate. Through repeated exposure, the predictive algorithm links the environmental ritual to the drug's entry. The body's defense triggers early, neutralizing the drug's impact as it hits the system. That preemptive adaptation is what we call tolerance. In an unfamiliar environment, the ritualized conditioned stimulus is missing. The biological defense fails to activate early, leaving the system vulnerable. The standard dose hits an unprepared body, resulting in a lethal overdose. Because this tolerance is a learned association, it can be reversed through extinction. Repeatedly presenting the injection ritual, followed by a harmless placebo like saltwater, triggers the false alarm defense without the drug. Over time, the algorithm breaks the predictive link. Drug tolerance is a profound demonstration of the classical algorithm physically altering biochemistry based solely on environmental cues. While classical conditioning prepares the body, organisms must also execute skeletal movements to force an outcome in their environment. This is the domain of the operant algorithm, where the consequences of a voluntary action dictate whether that action will be repeated. Edward Thorndike studied this using cats in wooden puzzle boxes. To escape, the cat had to perform a specific action, like tilting a pole. Thorndike noted that his subjects did not calculate the solution. Instead, they emitted a random barrage of movements, pawing, biting, and pacing, until they happened to trigger the latch. This graph maps the time needed to escape across multiple trials. The performance improves gradually, but with sporadic, jagged inconsistency. A sudden mastery of the task would appear as a sharp vertical drop, followed by a flat line of perfect performance. The jagged decline we actually see proves that learning is a mechanical process of trial and error. This illustrates the law of effect. An organism enters a situation with several potential behaviors at roughly equal probability. If behavior R7 opens the door, that action is reinforced. The future probability of R7 increases, while the ineffective behaviors decline. After 100 trials, the environment has permanently selected the successful skeletal variant. The algorithm defines reinforcement through the disequilibrium principle. Every organism has a baseline division of time, how much it naturally wants to eat, play, or groom. Reinforcement is any event that allows the system to return to that equilibrium after being deprived of a specific activity. Just as natural selection shapes a species over millions of years, the operant algorithm uses reinforcement to sculpt an individual's skeletal actions in real time. An organism exists in a continuous, two-way feedback loop with its reality. On the left, the classical algorithm identifies environmental predictors to initiate visceral adaptations. On the right, the operant algorithm deploys skeletal movements to modify the environment and receive reinforcement. Together, these form a single architecture where environmental data dictates biological output. Behaviorists argue that the environment is the ultimate author of our behavior. Our internal intentions are not the causes of this machinery. They are the echoes of these two algorithms executing their code. Learning is the ultimate deterministic process, a measurable synchronization between the biological system and the shifting software of the world.